Hey guys, today I'm going to be painting the Haunter from Claustrophobia 1643. I'm starting out with light green blue, so it's a very light color, so you can see it, but it's not pretty close to this white prime that I did. I chose the white primer because I knew I was going to be painting this bright color. Painting it on black or gray would have been a little bit more difficult. This is a current Kickstarter that's out. It's pretty much sold out almost everywhere. America and Europe, I know, has a few copies. I think they just added a few more to the other regions. So if this game is interesting to you, or if you find this miniature kind of cool or neat, to go ahead and check that out. There's a link in the description below. I'm a backer myself and looking forward to it. I play games mostly with my wife, and so it's a two-player game, so that's perfect. And it just looks kind of interesting, and the design of these miniatures are really cool. Now, there's this little kind of piece, otherwise kind of separate, that I'm really glad it's separate. It makes painting a little bit easier, but you're going to have to glue that to the front of him afterwards. But trust me, it makes it way easier to paint. I'll talk more about that later. Right now, what I've done is I've added matte white, so just a little bit of white to the previous color. This is not straight white. This is just for like the most inner parts that are glowing the hottest or the lightest. You can kind of think of this as like fire, but you're not painting with like reds and oranges and warm colors. You're painting with these cool colors, so these greens and blues. Now, I will say that I wish I had done this after I painted the darker portions of him on the outside. Normally, you want to paint from the most recessed portion of the miniature to the outermost portion of the miniature. However, in this case, because I wanted to actually glow onto that dark portion, it would save you a step by doing the darker portion first, and then just putting your brush in there and getting a little bit on the sides. That's actually kind of what you want. Not always. Sometimes it's like under armor and you don't want to get it on there, but in this case it would have been fine. Now again, don't forget this little guy. Just paint him while you paint the other one so you have the colors out. Here's the dark portion I was talking about. This is dark sea blue, and I'm trying to kind of keep this in the same kind of color scheme, so these greens and blues, and really that's almost all that's on this miniature, and it comes out really cool because of it. You could have done perhaps a straight black or a black gray or something like that. It's kind of hard to tell in the concept art just because it's not really lit up well. Which is kind of the whole point. However, I think this is the perfect color for it. Again, it matches the theme. It's plenty dark. I think it looks really, really nice. So, in the end, I think this very cool idea of a miniature, especially with kind of the cohesive color scheme here. And on the back there, you can see there's little tiny pieces. It's much different than the front. You can't see the concept art back, right? They only did the front of him, as far as I know. So. Do with that as you will, but there's a little bit of a design you can see on the back. Again, paint this guy while you're painting the other one. If you didn't have this, it would be impossible almost to paint what I'm doing right now, the inside of it, and then that whole glowing portion on the front of him on the bottom would be covered by this. This would go from an easy painting, which I find it is right now, to a very hard painting. Okay, so now I've added a little bit of light green blue in. This is about a 50-50 mix, and then I'm coming in right now with almost pure light green blue, just adding this kind of glow on his hands. It looks like there's a little bit of some on his concept art, and it helps break up those arms a bit and draws attention to the hands, which is kind of cool. Now we have Emerald out, which is one of my favorite colors that I don't get to use often. We have, some bright pinks and stuff like that we just don't really use too often. And this is one of those for me. But he does have a piece of cloth that's kind of draped off of his like skeleton bone structure stuff. So go ahead and paint all this with this color. However, start being careful. At this point, a lot of the miniatures are actually painted, and so we don't want to have to do a whole lot of touch-ups. Now I have Athonian Camoshade out, which is a green wash, and this is something you're just going to cover the entire emerald cloth with. It will shift the color a lot, which whenever you have a shade, you almost kind of want to plan on that, because it will kind of shift it, unless it's a darker color, but lighter colors will definitely shift, differently depending on the color wash you use. That being said, this is just supposed to pull to the resources, but it takes a while to dry. So while we're waiting for it to dry, we're going to put some light orange onto the base. Now the tiles in Claustrophobia are beautiful and they're amazing and they're all so different. However, they tend to have a lot of these oranges and tans. And so I'm going to first just put on this light orange, and then I'm going to cover it in this flesh wash here. So right now I'm going to just kind of plop this on, and this again will shift the color a little bit, make it a little bit more orange from this flesh wash. Flesh tends to have some oranges to it, sometimes some pinks or reds, or either way these kind of warm colors to it, unless it's like an undead or something like that. Now I have dark tone out, which is really just a black wash, and this is just for the outermost portion of the cloth. It's going to shift it a little bit darker, and I'm not going to highlight this portion as much. What this really does is it builds on that believability of this stuff glowing, to where the farther out you are, the less it's glowing. I'm not necessarily doing any OSL or object source lighting effects on here, but this is just an easy way to change it up a little bit and show that these are farther out, and just kind of adds to the visual complexity. So now I have Emerald out again, and this is because, especially when you shift a color this much, you want to go back to the base color before you highlight. If you were to go straight to highlight, it would be too big of a jump. This is already a plenty big jump here. Now I'm focusing on the bottom portion of it, because again, I'm going to put a wash on this that's going to, and on the glow part, that's going to really mesh them together. And so I kind of want to show this kind of shining up onto his cloth. So the bottom portion is going to get the most of it. And then even on those parts that I did that dark tone on. Now I've added a little bit of white to this, and so this is now my kind of first level highlight here. Though really we have the shaded portion, the regular, and now this highlighted. So 3 different levels here. And again, I'm very much focusing now on this bottom portion. I'm not trying to really bring out details with this per se. I'm just trying to kind of, again, sell this kind of glowing light a bit more. Here's that wash I was talking about. This is Drakenhof Nightshade, and beyond just having a cool name, I can, I guess, tell you a bit about it. So it's a blue wash, so now we've used a green, a black, and now a blue. Now this I'm gonna put over pretty much every portion that I just did that extreme highlight with, but I'm also gonna get it on the glow itself. So you can see here, I don't have a lot on my hand. I'm rubbing it on my thumb. You'll see that a little bit later, because I don't want it to pool. Normally when you use these, they're supposed to just pull into the recesses and really darken it up. I'm just trying to actually just get that shift in color a little bit, and not really trying to bring out any of these details or anything like that. So I'm putting it kind of almost as you would fire, where it goes from light to dark, so from the farthest portions. So like right here, I'm going to put it at kind of the top of this little fluff, or almost, you can think of it pretty much like fire, but instead of warm colors like oranges and reds and whatnot, we're using these kind of blues and greens, so these cool colors. It makes it more ethereal, I think. Back onto the base, we have Lava Orange. This is a much more orangey orange, and so again, the tiles are all so different, but they tend to kind of have these color ranges in here. So I'm just trying to get it to look like it fits in without only fitting into some of them, but looking way out of place on others. And so after that Lava Orange, I then have this dark sand I'm going to dry brush on there, and this is going to give me kind of the tans and the orange, and I'm putting it heavier on one side and then kind of blending it into the orange on the other, so we kind of have the base color and the orange and then this tan color, and I think it'll work out pretty well. Now this is kind of fun. I really enjoy doing this. So I have Weapon Bronze, and then I added a regular black, this Abaddon black, to it. And you can actually add any paint you want, or even washes, to metallic paints, and it'll change. I've thinned metallic paints with Nuln Oil. Sometimes I'll darken them that way. This time I actually just added a regular, I didn't want it to be too watered down or kind of pool, and I need to be exact here, so I just added regular black to it. But you could add blues to silvers to make them kind of that cool silver look to it. You can do all sorts of stuff here. The concept art has this really dark, and I didn't think it'd make much sense to have the Weapons Bronze, which is normally actually a fairly bright color. I guess normally it's kind of more muted, but on this guy it'd be really bright because he's really dark. I didn't want to stand out too much, and I wanted to kind of match that concept art. Again, I'm not doing any OSL effect here, but either way, these would be less lit up because they're farther away from this glow. So anyway, yeah, just kind of experiment with that and do what you would like. But I really enjoy adding paints to that. And again, there's a little bit on that portion, which as you can see now I've glued onto there. And so you can see how it would cover up a lot of the miniature and make this a very hard painting scheme otherwise. Now I have these cloths here that I kind of forgot about, so I'm not going to bother showing you the paint list here. Just paint them with the rest of the cloth and you'll be good. Alright, we are on to the last step for painting. I have chosen black gray. I don't like doing black rims because when you look at a board of miniatures that have black rims, you're going to see those black rims first and then the miniature on top of it. It does pop it out, but it also makes it, that's the first thing you notice. So pick a gray, typically a dark gray. This might be a bit too dark. I probably would have preferred maybe a Necromancer's Cloak or even a Mechanicus Standard gray or uniform gray to this, but you know, oh well, that's fine. Now we gotta protect the miniature, so I chose some matte varnish. With matte varnish, just make sure you put a couple coats on it, because it's not as protective otherwise, but I don't want them to be shiny. And this is it. This is the Haunter from Claustrophobia 1643. Monolith is running that campaign right now, so again, if you're interested, go to the link in the description below. I'm a backer, and you'll probably see me commenting over there myself. This game, I think, looks pretty cool. These miniatures, the style is really interesting. It's quite unique in my eyes. I haven't really seen anything quite like these miniature, the miniature line they have here. So pretty exciting. An easy paint job, really. I mean, that was quick, right? That was not too bad. We didn't do any difficult techniques or anything like that. I didn't bother wet blending and all that. And I still think he came out quite well. Definitely better than the regular plastic it was. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I always appreciate it, and I will talk to you soon.